Welcome back. My name is Benjamin, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to build a directory completely searchable and good looking as well using no-code tools. Specifically, a no-code tool called Bubble. Now, what you're seeing right here is basically what we're going to build today. It's a directory of things that you will be able to search. In this case, this is a directory of no-code tools on the platform Bubble. So it's a little bit of Inception if you want, right? So we are going to be using Bubble. It's this one. So as you can see, the directory is searchable. You can find it at app.avalonlabs.co/nocode if you want. Another example is this directory right here. And as you can see, it's very, very similar in the look to this one. And that is because it's basically this directory duplicated with other things, right? And the data in this case is GPT-3. It's very difficult for me to say that for some reason. GPT-3 examples. And this information was originally gathered by a guy called Aditya Joshi. So that's why I'm creating him here. I just turn it into a directory like this that you can search. And the search function for me is the best function because, for example, if I'm looking for a specific no-code tool, I can just search for, dashboards here. And I can have all the no-code tools that I've put into this database and that I can add to this database that corresponds to the search term dashboard. And of course, GPT-3, or not of course, but it is the latest OpenAI text transformer API basically. And if you haven't checked that out, you should. It's really, really cool. And I think AI is about to get a lot more crazy if it isn't already. So check that out. Now, today we're going to be building a directory of cognitive biases. And I feel like a chef on TV because I've already prepared a little bit, but just a little bit because I want to show you more or less from scratch how I would create a directory like this. So here you can see we're going to create a directory of cognitive biases and some of the more interesting cognitive biases in behavioral economics. But first of all, we need to know what a cognitive bias is. And if you're not familiar, a cognitive bias is basically a systematic pattern of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment. And that explanation is straight out of Wikipedia. And what that means is basically that we are stupid, right? We have biases in the way we see the world and in the way we judge situations. So our experienced rationality is actually biased, right? Cognitively biased. And it's a little bit like we are fishes in water, but we have no concept of water. We are just where we are, right? And it's the same for us because we are just acting in the world, not knowing necessarily that you, I, everybody has these cognitive biases that paint the way we see the world and how we judge. So it's very important, I think, to know the concept of cognitive biases and to know a few of them, and at least it's very interesting to me. So that's why I chose cognitive biases as the data type for a directory in this video. Now, luckily, there are already listed cognitive biases with very, very good explanations and examples. So there's no need really to reinvent the wheel. I just want to make that data accessible in a way I like, and searchable in a way I like as well. So I know a place that has a great list and explanations of these cognitive biases. So let's go there now. And that's Decision Lab. And Decision Lab, let's just wait for their page to load. They are change makers, right? They help companies with transformational change, and everything they do is grounded in behavioral science. So big up to them for creating this list of cognitive biases that we are going to use now because it's very solid. Okay, so we have a basic layout in Bubble. We have some data. Now we want to take that data, structure it in a way we want. We want to put it into Bubble. Then we want to showcase it into Bubble, and we want to put some search functionalities in there. And that's basically it. And then we can tweak however much we want. But that's basically the steps here. So here is a great tool that I really recommend that you try. It is called Simple Scraper. Simple Scraper lets you scrape stuff from websites and turn that stuff that you've scraped into an API if you want, and it can also scrape cloud-based scraping and URL-based scraping. But let's just start by using it, so you'll see how it works. So bias name, boom, it catches 94 items. Okay. Bias short description, because this is just a short description, right? Boom. Cool. Let's view those results. We have them here. Let's download them as a .csv. And let's rename them biases directory. Okay. Now I want to create a data type in Bubble that corresponds to the data that I've scraped here, in this case at least. So we have a bias, and a bias has a bias name and a bias short description. Okay, we have a bias, and a bias has a bias name, text-based, and a bias short description. And note here that I am using the same titles, and that is because I will save some time when I upload the CSV data into Bubble, so I don't have to choose which field to put the data in. It'll do that automatically. Okay, so we have bias name, bias short description. All right, and that is pretty cool. The question is if we can catch a link. Can we catch a link? Let's try. Yes, we can. All right, I'm going to take this data instead, because now you can see that we caught the links, and if we just visit a link here, it'll take us into a bias with explanations more in depth, related biases, and a bunch of stuff, right? So I think we'll maybe just grab the overall explanation and the related biases. That would be pretty cool. So let's take this instead. Going to just rename that quickly to bias updated. Okay, and I'm going to add a test link. Why not? Actually, maybe won't need it here inside the data, but you know, it can be nice to link out to the original web page, so why not? All right, and I'm actually going to switch to the live database here, so that I upload the data in the live version. And that is usually, unfortunately, pretty slow to do in Bubble, just switching between databases. But you know, I don't mind. Gives me a few seconds to just rant. Okay, app data. We want to upload some data. Let's pick a file, CSV, bias updated, check. Type of data, it's a bias. Oh, that's right. I added a data type inside the development version of Bubble without deploying, so that data type doesn't exist in the live version yet. So let's deploy first, and then you'll see that we can find the bias data type in the live version soon. And now we're here again waiting. This is a nice loading screen, right? But really, if you haven't looked into GPT-3, and I'm trying to say it right the first time now, check this out, because these are some crazy examples of what is already possible with OpenAI's latest AI API, and there'll be a lot more to come. And they just released this in July, so you know, recently. Check that out. Okay, we're still loading here. Come on. So I might edit this, or I might not. We'll see. Come on. Okay, now I want to deploy this. Shaking. Deploy. All right, cool. Let's go to live. And the reason that I want to be in the live version is just that I don't have to copy paste the data from the development database to the live database. So I want to upload this data straight into the live database so that I can show you guys how it will look on the front end. All right, upload, pick a file, bias updated, type of data, bias, yes, data delimiter, map fields, and see here, well, test. It automatically matches and maps fields to fields. Validate the data, check, upload. Cool, cool, cool. Processing file. This we do not have to be around for. All right, where are we? We are in biases. Do you see it? There we are. Okay, so now we have a lot of biases we should have. Yep, look here. So we have these now in the database. Now, unfortunately, we can, or not unfortunately, but we cannot edit in the live database. It makes a lot of sense, right? So going back to the development, and we'll just have the page here so we can see what happens on the live side when we deploy from the development base. All right, so now what we need is we need a way to show the information that we have seen is now in the database. Okay, so I want to show in a list view the data. And the way to do that is to use a container called repeating group. So we're going to use bias data. Data source will just be all of the biases. So we're going to search for bias. We can actually sort by bias name, descending. Yes, all right. So in these fields now are all the biases, bias 1, bias 2, bias 3, etc. In this list view. So we can call on information inside each bias in these different fields. First of all, let's do just one row, but we can do, I don't know, 3 columns, maybe 4 columns. Let's do 3 columns. Let's do full list. And one of the reasons that I prepared a little bit is because I want to take this card now, just duplicate this card. And what I want is just the elements, line to the left, like so. Make the card a little bit smaller, but more or less, you know, like this. This is okay, I think. Let's do that. All right, and let's also just expand this a little bit just to show you. So let's do 180 for that one. Let's take, and now you can see, boom, all right. Like so. We can center this. You know what? Actually, let's not center it. So anyways, let's also remove these separations. I don't need to view them. But now, instead of having just a text, we can input some dynamic data. And a way to do that is to make sure that the parent element is the right element. So we want to have a bias type of content on the parent element to what I'm going to change, which is this element. That's the bias group's name, and here will be the bias group's short description. All right. Now let's see how that looks. First we deploy. Boom. And then we refresh. And we should have a list of biases. Boom. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? I think it is. I think it is beautiful. But we can already see that, you know, it's difficult to just have an overview of this. I want to be able to search inside titles, but also the short descriptions. And I also want to add more information, right? Because I know that for every bias, for example, the action bias, there is a lot more information. So the question is, how can I take this information and put it into each bias type here? And that I will cover actually in the next part. But what we're going to do now is put a search field here so we can be able to search the biases that we have. So let's do that. Let us do that. And I am going to take a search field that I've already created. Just a field, so don't worry too much. Biases about me, not doing it from scratch. Just might save a little bit of time. I'm gonna copy the formatting. I'm gonna paste the formatting. And I think I have pop-ins here. Yes, pop-ins. Let's do pop-ins then. Pop-ins 700, I think it was. Let's do that. Let's do this color as well. Okay, maybe remove the border, I think. All right. The padding here should be increased also, I feel. That's better. Search tools, no. Search. Bias. Biases, maybe. Search biases. Strange word. Okay. Conditional, well, it's not that important. Now we need a plugin called Fuzzy Search. Fuzzy Search, where are you? It's somewhere here. Search and autocorrect. Okay, that's the one. Search and autocorrect, and we can see that the element is search and autocorrect. Search and autocorrect. We just need to put that on the page. Data type, bias, data source, same as the repeating group, right? Bias. Field to search. I want to search first the name and then the short description. Boom. And we'll leave these empty for now. Input box ID. Well, this is the input box. Let's give it an ID. Search input already is there. Search input. Okay. Input box ID. I did it in the wrong field. It should be here. Okay. And if you're using Bubble and you notice that you don't have the option to input an ID attribute, it is because you have to enable it. So you have to go to settings, you have to go to general. I think it's general at least. Yes, and under general appearance, it says expose option to add an ID attribute to HTML elements. Check. Okay, and when you check in the editor window here, if you go to the bottom, you will find ID attributes. And for a lot of plugins, that functionality is needed. All right. So now we have connected the plugin to the search box. Now what we have to do is we have to connect the data source for this repeating group to the input in the search box. Okay, so now the search function works, and I am going to show you how. And I also changed the layout style to the repeating group here to vertical scrolling, because if we have the full list, it can take a few moments before the list loads, because it loads the entire list. Whereas when you have vertical scrolling, it loads when the data is in the scroll position, so it's faster. Now we have this search and autocorrect plugin. We have to enable this checkbox, set text to match an input box. Input box has an ID, search input, Make sure that is correct. Yes. And now all we have to do is put a conditional formatting on the data source for our repeating group here. So the way that I set this up is when the input search biases, that is this box, when the number of characters that I have inputted in this box exceeds 3, the condition will apply. And I've also put an OR statement here. So when that happens, or when this box is focused, meaning I have clicked on it, and the input value in terms of number of characters exceeds 3, then the data source is search and autocorrects matches. And that is this thingy right here. So this is searching for biases based on inputs here, with searching first the field name, and then the description. So when we do all this, this is how it looks. 0, risk bias, right? Decoy, action, 0, interpret, should be here or somewhere. All right, boom. And the loading effect, well, we can't really see it yet. So that's basically it for this part. As you can see, it's a bit cluttery right now, so we need to remove these or make them smaller at least. And we need to make the cards look a little bit better, I think. And then I also want to include, like I alluded to, this type of information, but that's in part 2. But basically, all we have done now to create all this, which is a really, really cool searchable directory of cognitive biases, all we have done is created a quick layout here. I prepared this. And then we have scraped the data from any source, in this case the Decision Lab source, using a plugin called Simple Scraper. Really, really cool. And then we have uploaded that data into Bubble using .csv file. And we have, before uploading it, created a data type corresponding to the data type we're going to upload. Then we're calling that data from the database using a repeating group here. And then we're making that data searchable using a plugin called Search and Autocorrect, and connecting that plugin to the search box and connecting the search box to conditional formatting in the repeating group here. And that is all we have to do. And once I've done this once, you can just take this layout, copy and paste it, go to edit, clone page, create a new data type, scrape some new data or take whatever data you have available, upload that, change the type of content here to the data type that you now are using, and do the same for other inputs requiring data types, and change the searches. And that's it. Then you have an entirely new directory. So just to open up your mind a little bit, use your imagination. Whatever data you have, it can be 10,000 or hundreds of thousands or even millions of records of some data that's meaningful to you or people you know. You can make that searchable, and you can make it searchable in a very, very beautiful way. I mean, Bubble in this case is very versatile when it comes to design. You can do anything you want. It's basically like Figma or whatever design tool you use, but you put functionality into it. And granted, it's not as easy to use, but it is still very easy to use compared to the time that you put in and what you get out of it. So a relatively short input of time will give you a nice output. Now I've talked a lot in this video, but still it's relatively short, and we have already created a very nice looking, although it's not perfect, a very nice looking directory here of cognitive biases that I can get back to anytime I want. And instead of going to the list here and just looking at the biases, I'm looking for what's the name of that bias, where yada yada yada, that's how I am. I need to be able to do elastic searches on larger data sets. It helps me and I like this view better. And I like to do this with, a lot of stuff. And if you know any fun directory we could build, or I could build showing you how I did it, just let me know. And for part 2, I'll show you how you can add on some more data using a recurring workflow or a loop if you want in Bubble. But that's for the next video. And again, if you like this kind of things and you're excited about building stuff, whether you're building on Bubble or other no-code tools, go to avalanlabs.co/academy and sign up for the waiting list. We are going to make basically a library of lessons using no-code, and we're going to throw in a lot of templates and a lot of awesome stuff, mainly on Bubble, but we will use Bubble, and we will use the mobile app no-code tools like Glide or Adalo or Thunkable and DraftBit, which is really, really cool. So check that out and go here and sign up for the waitlist. And when enough people signs up for the waitlist, we'll start to create the actual, video platform where we'll host all the stuff. But until then, just, subscribe if you haven't, if you like this kind of stuff. And if more people subscribe, it gives me motivation to do these videos. Although I love building, it's, it takes some time to create videos. And I have to edit also because I rant. So sometimes I rant to the extent that it's not viable to just have it in the video, sort of like now maybe. And I have to edit. So subscribe. It gives me motivation to continue doing these things. And Bubble is amazing. No-code is amazing. So I'll see you for part 2 and how we're going to create this cognitive bias directory version 2.0, which is going to be really, really, really solid. All right. So I'll see you then. Until next time. Ciao.